They want their money back, and they want it now. That's right, Tiffany Henyard back in hot water again, and the Thornton Township, because the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, the DCEO, said that they want that money back. We're talking 100% of that $500,000 grant that we were wondering and thinking that Tiffany Henyard and Kamal Woods got away with scot-free. Well, they didn't, but there's a twist because we had the story all wrong from the jump. So in this video, I want you to pay attention and stick with me to the end because I'm going to unravel it all. First, we're going to talk about how Tiffany and Kamal didn't get away with anything with that $500,000, and then next, the twist. We never had this right from the get-go, and I'm going to unravel all of that and tell you exactly what they did and why their actions puts them into deeper hot water than where they were before. So they're not getting away with anything, guys. And then the bonus. This is going to be good and why you need to watch the end. Tiffany is scrambling now to delete history, to clean up her public image by making new threats through her attorney. All right, so like, subscribe, hit the button right now, hit the hype button if it shows up so we can get this video out there. All right. We got to have a good time with this one because it's not every day that we get new, juicy Tiffany Henyard news. So we're going to have to jump over to the courtroom for this. I feel like we need the courtroom. Much better setting here. And we're going to go through all of the details. So I've got to put my reading glasses here. All right. And we're going to go through point by point everything that has occurred, what we find out through the breaking news, and then we're going to unravel the confusion that we all had wrong before. Okay, so the breaking story is, of course, that the Thornton Township was ordered to repay the $500,000 in misused grant funds, and that happened on January the 10th of 2026, reported by the Lansing Journal. I'll leave the link in the description so you can read it yourself. Now, what are the facts? Here's the facts. First, the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, the DCEO, ruled that 100% of that money from that grant was spent improperly during the period covering Tiffany Henyard's leadership when she was the SuperMayor. All right, the next fact is, of course, the township must now repay the entire amount. That's right, Thornton Township is going to have to buck up the money. They're not going after Tiffany Henyard, they're going after the township. Next, the financial report covering fiscal year 2025 is what triggered the repayment order. All right, so the report does not explicitly name Tiffany Henyard, but the spending that occurred during her tenure as supervisor of Thornton Township, which makes this directly relevant to the ongoing federal scrutiny of her administration. In other words, the FBI investigation is still moving forward, and this adds fuel to the fire. Okay, now, so this is the only new financial scandal tied to her governance within the last month. Okay, we haven't had a lot of news since the FBI put the pinch on Mr. Lacey, Mr. Potato Man, the potato cop, and also Keith Freeman. So what this does is it just strengthens the whole pattern that they're establishing of mismanagement that the federal investigators have been probing and trying to prove. Okay, so now here is the shocker. Let's clear up the confusion. Here it is. The truth is that $500,000 grant was officially tied to the TAP youth employment program, that whole lawn mowing scandal, not the Plan B youth violence prevention program that was run by Kamal Woods. Boom, there it is. Now, do you guys remember that lawn mowing bull crap that Stan Brown, Milk Dud Brown, he was so excited and motivated to keep youth out there from messing around in the streets? Well, they can be mowing the lawns of the elderly people and we'll pay them to do that. That was what the grant was supposed to go forward. Now, the question I have in my mind, why does it take $500,000 of grant money to get a bunch of juvenile delinquents to mow lawns? It doesn't take that much money. You can go get a lawnmower at Walmart for $100. Maybe they buy 10 mowers, because I'm sure they didn't have more than 10 juvenile delinquents out there mowing lawns for the elderly people. You could buy 100 lawnmowers, and that's just $10,000. What do they need $500,000 for? That's way, way, way more than the amount needed to direct, guide, and fund a program, all right, and pay the people that are supervising the program. But here's the deal. There is a strong circumstantial connection between that grant and Kamal's program. And the reason is because both programs were labeled youth violence prevention. That's where the confusion comes in. And both were operated under SuperMayor Tiffany Henyard's administration. That is fact. Now, it gets better. Both of those programs had no real deliverables, no documentation, and no measurable outcomes. What? Shocker, right? We're all surprised. But both were overseen by the same leadership structure inside of the Thornton Township. And this is why the public and some of the trustees, Stan Brown, who was behind that, this is why the public and the good trustees believed that the $500,000 was for the Plan B grant, but it was not. Okay, now let's break it down from what the Lansing Journal Article says, and you can read it yourself. I'll give you the summary. This is the TLDR. Too long, didn't read. Okay, so the state of Illinois ordered Thornton Township to repay the $500,000 because the money came from a DCEO grant. Okay? The township claimed that it was for a youth violence prevention program, not the Plan B. So now here's what I didn't realize and was improperly reported. The township tied the grant to the TAP lawn mowing program, which hired the juvenile delinquent teens to mow lawns for the seniors. Okay? Name me any other municipality in the United States, by the way, that does lawn mowing for seniors. I have never heard of such. Okay, lastly, the state determined that 100% of the spending was ineligible, and they demanded repayment. So the article doesn't even mention the Plan B youth violence prevention program that Kamal Woods was heading up or any other program. It specifically names the TAP lawn mowing program. Okay, well, what was the Plan B youth violence program then? Well, it was a separate youth violence prevention initiative run by none other than yo man, Kamal Woods. That's right. And they paid him $100,000 a year for that Plan B youth violence prevention program. And this is the one where he listed his defunct car wash as the program headquarters. And that's why I never could find a trace of evidence of where that $500,000 went as it is connected to the Plan B program, because that wasn't a part of it. So that was a separate grant, all right, which gave them the money for the $100,000 a year salary. Now, as I mentioned before, the Plan B Youth Violence Prevention Program produced no evidence of services, no office. It had no staff. They had no curriculum, and they had no youth participants. There wasn't a single juvenile delinquent even washing cars in the defunct car wash. Nothing went on. They didn't even try. So it was widely believed to be a ghost program used to funnel money. So Plan B, not mentioned in the article, not mentioned in the state's repayment order. But hey, that does not mean that it wasn't funded by the same grant. It just means that the $500,000 is directly connected to the other program. So why were we confused? Why do we get this mixed up? Well, let's cover that. Here's why we thought the $500,000 was for Plan B. It's because both programs were labeled youth violence prevention. The trustees repeatedly asked Tiffany Henyard where the Plan B grant money went, and she wasn't producing any information. So we were still assuming, they were still assuming that the $500,000 was for Plan B. Now, Kamal's salary and program expenses were never accounted for. Never. Okay? So the township never produced receipts or reports or documentation for the Plan B Youth Violence Prevention Program. And the timing of the grant and when Kamal was hired, well, that overlapped. It was happening concurrently. So that's why the public and the trustees logically assumed that the $500,000 was for the Plan B program. But the state's audit only referenced the TAP lawn mowing program because that's where that's what the township claimed that the grant was used for, and I didn't know that. So Stan Brown, Milk Dud Man, what are you going to do here? Because I'm thinking that this is going to get you into hot water because you were the one pushing that TAP lawn mowing program now, weren't you? Okay, so the most likely real explanation, okay, is this. So Henyard's administration appears to have blended multiple youth violence prevention programs together on paper to justify spending that had nothing to do with youth or violence prevention. Boom. Wow. Now, you remember when she was giving out some little scholarships, handing out $1,000 scholarships, $2,500 scholarships. That was another program, an initiative that she put forth, but we don't know where the money from that came from. Okay? So the state of Illinois only audited the part of the township officially tied to the grant, which was the TAP lawn mowing program. But the township's internal structure suggests that the grant money may have been diverted, commingled, or altogether misreported. Wow. So Plan B was one of the likely destinations, but we don't know. All right. So this is why the state of Illinois came back and said, you know what? Forget it. 100% of this is now ineligible because y'all mixed up all the records and we can't tell what the hell was going on. And the township couldn't prove any of it to be used for its proper case for what it was given for. So now we know the rest of the story, and that's all unraveled. So now what is Tiffany Henyard doing? She's diverting. So she knows she's in hot water again. And I want to pull up this article over here. Let me see. While I'm looking for it, I'm going to tell you that her response to this, her response to all of this nonsense is to deflect. And now she's trying to clean up her image. And she's doing that by ordering people to take down articles. So let's just jump over to this lovely little news story. Here it is right here. All right, let's just kind of go through Illinois leaks and check out what they had to say. So Henyard tries cleaning up her image, wants the articles that are written about her to be removed. So they said no. Surprise there. They're not going to take the articles down. So it goes on to say, we have received these from others in the past and have never removed an article based on any of these so-called compliance notices or takedown demands, whether they were sent to us by attorneys or image companies like this one is. So apparently it's an image company. That's interesting. Now, when you go down through the article and you could read it yourself, this is the whole text of the request from the cyber investigation unit of a company called Business Image lift. Okay, trying to lift. That'd be a pretty big lift to lift her image, wouldn't it? I thought that she was working through her attorney, so that was wrong. I guess she doesn't have any money left to hire attorneys. Let's just read the first paragraph and then you can read the rest because it's mostly BS. We hope this image finds you well, or this message. We are reaching out on behalf of our client, Tiffany Henyard, regarding the URL posting mentioned below. We kindly request the removal of the specified URLs. Please note that we are not attorneys. Oh, there you have it. Mrs. Henyard has experienced significant distress and negative consequences in both her personal and professional life. The damage caused by this article has affected her relationships, employment opportunities, and overall well-being. Tiffany Henyard is a dedicated public servant who has always prioritized the well-being of her community. Okay, I can't do that anymore. So, Tiffany, what are you going to do here? What are you going to do? You can't clean up your image. You can't force people to take down articles with an image facelift company, this facelift cyber investigation unit. It ain't going to work. And it looks like the exposure of the failure to report what you were doing with all of that federal money is going to come back to bite you, because this makes the situation worse, not better. Now that we know that the state of Illinois has finally come forward and said, we want the money back, that $500,000, we got to have it back. It's the reason that's going to cause her to be in more hot water than what she was before, because the reason was, as I stated, there was no explanation, no justification, and a complete commingling, scrambling the books, mixing everything up with all the federal programs that she had going on. Now, there's a question that I have got to ask you people. I got to ask you this question. I got two questions. Question number one, and this is for all of the naysayers who claim that the investigation is going nowhere and she's never going to be held responsible or go to jail. My question is this: do you think that this clawback is going to help her or hurt her? Even though they're not asking her to, pull up the money or pay back the $500,000. It's Thornton Township. But do you think that this is going to help her or hurt her? Was it a win for her that she doesn't have to pay the money back? I don't think it is. I think it's going to hurt her, but let me know in the comments. And also, if you think that this is going to hurt or help Kamal Woods. Now, in my opinion, I think that this is going to hurt Kamal Woods, because now they're unraveling the details. And obviously, if the state comes in and does an audit and says, you guys screwed up all your records, give the money back, I think that they're only just getting started. Okay, so post in the comments, especially the naysayers who don't think that she's going to get arrested, who say the FBI investigation will never end. Okay, now, next question. Next question I have for you. $500,000 has to be repaid by Thornton Township. We know that Tiffany drove the village about $5 million in debt. But does it kind of make you look back and say, we got so upset about all of the debauchery and all of the stealing and the alleged embezzling, the alleged kickbacks, the alleged cooking the books and running credit cards up to the limit? We got very upset about that. But now that we know what real fraud is, like what's going on in Minnesota, where we find out that there have been Somalis flying from the airport back to Africa, to East Africa, with suitcases filled with amounts ranging from $750,000 to $3 million. Suitcases, briefcases, luggage stuffed with cash. Now, the total amount that they are thinking that has been drained from the U.S. Federal budget, from the U.S. federal money that is supposed to be going to feed the poor, for entitlement programs and the likes. They're saying $600 billion now, and that's just from the state of Minnesota. So I want to ask you this question. Did we overreact to the $5 million that Tiffany was responsible for, yet we're unequally as upset with what's going on in Minnesota? Now, I'll answer it from my perspective. I'm going to say, yes, I overreacted because I'm a lot more upset about what these jokers got away with in Minnesota than what Tiffany Henyard did in Chicago. But I want to know what you think about that. Post it in the comments. Tick the notification bell right now, because anytime there's breaking information about your girl Tiffany Henyard, I'm going to be on top of it. I'll be ready to report it and then give my commentary. All right. So it might not be that I'm the first to break the news, but I will be sharing my opinion and then relating it to the FBI investigation and enjoying the show. So let me know if you want continuing updates on the Tiffany Henyard debacle and the FBI investigation. And guys, you should be checking out my other videos, because I'm going to be reporting on your girl Jasmine Crockett and Ilhan Omar. All right? Two people who are leagues worse than Tiffany Henyard. Leagues worse. They're disgusting, disgusting people. And I tell you what, I just cannot believe that they don't get as much of attention as Tiffany Henyard. But we'll have to talk about that more in the future. That's all I got for this one. This is Carlton, and I'm out.